Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shweta, and this video is about Act 4 of the play The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. I have already covered two videos on Act 1, 2, and 3, and this Act 4, is one of the most important acts of the entire play. Now, before we move into the details of Act 4, let's pause and understand why this act is so important. Act 4 is the tragic climax of the play. Up until now, the Duchess has struggled against her brother's control, but in this act, she meets her downfall. This is where Webster brings together his major themes. And what are those themes? Themes of tyranny, patriarchy, madness, conscience, and identity. And he sets them on stage with maximum intensity. So that is why it is important, because this is not just an act of violence where the Ferdinand carries out his ultimate brutal violence against Duchess, but it's an act of psychological and spiritual confrontation. Ferdinand doesn't simply kill his sister, the Duchess, but he tortures her with illusions, with madmen in this scene, and with fear, which he wants to be penetrated into her heart very deeply. So, this is Webster's showing us how tyranny destroys not just the body, but the mind also. Now, from a character point of view, Act 4 is also the moment of transformation. The Duchess becomes a martyr like figure, a Christ like figure, and Bosola begins his moral awakening in this scene. He begins to understand that whatever he is doing is morally not good. Ferdinand also tips into madness into this scene. We see his the heights of madness into Ferdinand's behavior and overall dialogues and everything. And the Cardinal is also shown to be, revealing his cold hypocrisy, how he uses religion to carry out his tasks. So, in other words, this is the act where every major character reaches a very decisive turning point in their overall personality. Now, from a thematic point of view, Act 4 forces us to ask very hard questions like what happens when patriarchal power goes unchecked? Nobody's there to say anything to the patriarchal powers. Can human dignity, like the Duchess, survive even in death? Can a person remain sane even in the situation like the Duchess was in? How does the conscience haunt the corrupt people? Are they really affected by their own guilty deeds? That's why we need to study this act very deeply. So, without it, the play is incomplete. This act doesn't just show us the death itself, it shows us the meaning of death and other things. The Duchess dies, yes, but she dies saying, I am Duchess of Malfi. Still, this is the most famous quote that she speaks in the entire play. That is Webster's central message. Tyranny may destroy life, but integrity of a character, of a person, it survives forever. Now, in scene 1, we see Ferdinand's cruelty rising to a very new level. Bosola tells him that the Duchess is enduring her suffering very nobly. She is not at all afraid. She wears her sadness like a crown. That line, when he says that she is sad but gives a majesty to adversity. Now, this line shows us how, even in despair, in tough times, she carries herself with dignity. But Ferdinand, in his obsession, he confronts her in total darkness. He presents her with what he says is her husband's hand, and he offers her a wax hand, and he says, "Here is a hand to which you have vowed much love." It's actually a severed hand, and he follows this up with the wax figures of her family, like her children, and making her think Antonio and her children are already dead. So that is the way he psychologically torments the Duchess by showing the wax figures of her children and a dead hand of some other man, telling her that this is the hand of her beloved husband Antonio. Now, this is psychological torture at its worst. The scene closes with Ferdinand ordering the madmen to torment her. So many madmen are taken out from the madhouse, and they are paraded in front of the Duchess so that she gets, a mental breakdown. So Webster uses darkness, he uses illusion, like the showing of the wax figures and all, and horror, showing the dead man's hand here in this scene, to show us that tyranny is at its peak in this scene, and it is bent on destroying whatever Duchess loves. Now let's come to the scene 2 of Act 4. In scene 2, things they escalate, they increase. The Duchess hears the noise of the madman and she responds with that haunting line: the robin redbreast and the nightingale never live long in cages. This is what she says in this scene. And she knows her fate. She says that she accepts that she's trapped, and she knows that the birds, like the peaceful birds, like the robin, redbreast, and nightingale, they never live long in cages. That means she's not going to survive in the cage for long. She's trapped and she's about to die. So Bosola enters disguised as a tomb maker, then later on as an old man, and he is preparing her for the death. So this is also a cruelty on the part of Bosola, because nobody is able to watch the scene of their impending death, which is about to come. But she is calm, composed, and takes everything in her utmost dignity. And this is where the Duchess the most gives us her the most powerful line, and she says to him, "I am Duchess of Malfi still." In other words, you can strip me of freedom, family, even life, but not my identity. So she dies with immense dignity, and she asserts her identity, her duchesship, even till the last breath. Cariola, her waiting woman, she reacts very differently. She doesn't react like the Duchess has reacted. She gets a panic when they are about to take her and assassinate her. She resists desperately. She pleads. She says, "I'm quick with child." That means she tells them that I am with child, and so you should spare me. But she's anyway strangled, and she's also killed. The contrast here is very important. When, if a question is asked you, what is the difference between that you see between the Duchess and her maid Cariola, then the contrast is that the Duchess dies like a martyr, like a saint, like Christ got himself sacrificed over the cross. But Cariola dies like a human, clinging to life. She still wants to live, she has hope, but the Duchess dies with dignity. And Ferdinand, on seeing the body, he says, after he sees Duchess's body, he gets bewildered, and he says, "Cover her face, mine eyes dazzle. She died young." And this line is very powerful. It is a line that reveals the guilt breaking through his cruelty, how he feels guilty but not remorseful as such after he sees her dead face. And it also shows the heights of his cruelty, that in his fit of madness and in his passion for cruelty, how he killed the Duchess mercilessly at the hands of Bosola. He got her killed at the hands of Bosola. Now, scene 3 is relatively shorter than the other two scenes, but don't underestimate this scene. It is the scene where the court officers, they act almost like a chorus. They give us an outsider's view of the situation that Ferdinand now is in, or about his personality, how he is behaving right now. They say on his strange behavior that, and it is a quote, they say, "He seems to me a very formal Frenchman in talking to himself." Now, this is where Webster is showing us how Ferdinand's private madness is spilling out into the public view, how people are able to see through his madness. What began as a cruel, deliberate plot in scene 1 and scene 2, it is now being unraveled into visible insatiability. People can now see how they have plotted against their own sister, especially the Ferdinand, how he plotted against the innocent Duchess. The officers now, they start mocking him, and this mockery tells us that Ferdinand has lost all his authority, all his respect amongst his officers or the people who are working under him. Now, from exams point of view, if we see, then this is a great moment where Webster critiques the ruling class. He tells us that power without morality is inevitably going to collapse, and it is going to be ridiculed. मजाक उड़ाया जाएगा उस पावर का, अगर वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के साथ वो पावर नहीं आती है तो. This short scene, it prepares us for Ferdinand's eventual lycanthropy or his downfall, that is his transformation into beastliness, how mad now he is going to be from here onwards, almost turning himself into a beast like human who has no mercy for whatsoever person is in the front of him. Now, scene 4, it shifts the spotlight onto the cardinal. This scene focuses on the cardinal. This scene is about cold villainy of the cardinal. He talks with Ferdinand about concealing the duchess's death because he knows that he has done something terribly wrong. He says, how tedious is a guilty conscience. He reflects upon his guilty conscience. He says, how tedious it is. A line soaked with irony. He feels the weight of crime on his heart, yet he chooses calculation over repentance. He still wants to hide that crime rather than accepting his fault and accepting that he has done wrong, being a man of God. Now, Bosola overhears, which is very crucial for us to know because up till now, Bosola has been their servant, their spy. But hearing the cardinal plan with such icy cold detachment, it shakes Bosola's loyalty for the cardinal or for the Ferdinand. He feels very disgusted after he overhears cardinal saying this. The cardinal also says the devil takes delight to hang at a rich man's door. It exposes, this quote itself exposes his hypocrisy because here he is using religion as a cover for his misdeeds. Religion is always used as a shield by cardinal whenever he does something wrong. So where Ferdinand represents the chaotic emotional cruelty, the cardinal represents rationalized corruption. He thinks and then he does the corruption. He doesn't do the corruption without giving it a thought. Rather, he is very cold and calculating and he plans out his corruption. How is he going to execute every wrong deed? So a churchman masking murder under the pretext of piety or kindness is the meaner one. So Webster is warning us about the institutional evil, that is the church, the evil done under the pretense of God and church, and hiding oneself behind religion, which Cardinal is very much capable of doing. He always hides himself behind the religion. He always uses religion for his personal means and on for exploiting people and for hiding his crimes. So that's why this scene becomes even more important because the real face of Cardinal, his meanness, is exposed in this scene 4 of Act 4. Now, in this scene, the entire Act 4, the Duchess in Act 4, she achieves her true tragic stature. Her line, I am Duchess of Malfi still, it has become immortal for a reason. There is reason why this line is so important and so famous. Even when she's stripped off of her freedom, she's stripped off of her family, and she is left with no power, she clings to her identity. She clings to her being a duchess and she asserts it every time. That's the Renaissance ideal of integrity, that how people can stick to their respect and their identity even when they are stripped of everything, the power, the family, the love, the freedom. And her death scene elevates her into a martyr figure. As I told you before, that she emerges to be a Christ like figure because she has sacrificed herself for everything that she has in this world. Unlike Cariola, who begs and who resists, the Duchess meets death with very calm dignity, very composed, and with very noble thoughts. She almost becomes saint-like, accepting death not as a defeat but as vindication of spirit. That means that she will get to meet her family in the other world because this world is not meant for people like her. Now, students must see how Webster here contrasts worldly tyranny of Ferdinand or Cardinal with the spiritual strength of Duchess. So, there's a difference between the worldly tyranny of Cardinal and Ferdinand and contrasting it with the spiritual strength of the Duchess, which wins at the end, though she dies. But her strength wins. Her courage is Webster's way of saying that identity and truth, they both survive even when political power crushes the body. Because, see, Her strength, her spiritual strength, is something which moves the heart of even a villain like Bosola. And he also now is in the fifth act is going to, go for fixing the things in the right way as they should have been. So that is why her spiritual strength wins against the tyranny, even though her body dies. Now, Basola's arc is central to Act 4. Up until now, he has been hired tool. He's kind of a hired tool in the hands of the Ferdinand and the Cardinal. And he is cynical, he's practical, he's serving the tyrants for some reward or position or money that he thinks that he will get at the end of if he accepts to their tyranny. But here we see that his conscience is awakened. He becomes a changed man. He says to the Duchess, "Oh, fie despair. Remember, you are a Christian." So this quote tells us that there is a change of heart when it comes to Bosola in this act. This is not the voice of a hired assassin, but it's the voice of a man who is moved by her Duchess's suffering, by her pain, and he feels for her. Watching the Duchess endure so bravely, it shakes him to the core. He is really moved the way she is, enduring and uh, bearing everything on herself and not saying anything. He begins to question the morality of his actions, that why I am doing such a thing when a female and a duchess, she is able to bear so much. Why am I being immoral? And by the end of the act, he vows to avenge her, though duchess dies by the end of the act. But Bosola is there for her now, and he wants to avenge her death, avenge the wrongs done to her by Cardinal and Ferdinand. Now, I would like to stress that Bosola is Webster's most complex character here. He is a Machiavellian figure who evolves into a tragic avenger, who starts as a villain, but at the end he becomes a very tragic avenger who is hell-bent on getting her justice. Now his development as a character from bad to good, it reflects the moral chaos of the play. And what is that chaos? A question: can good ever emerge from corruption? क्या करप्शन से कुछ अच्छा हो सकता है? कैन समथिंग गुड कैन हैपन? यानी कि देयर इज अ पॉजिटिव नोट, देयर इज अ पॉजिटिविटी which Bosola gives us at the end, that things can be right if there is integrity of the soul and there is a character, there is an identity, and if people stick to their moral values, then things can also be set right even after tragedies. Ferdinand is at the height of monstrosity in this act. Severed hands, wax corpses which he shows to the Duchess, madmen in her prison cell so that she goes crazy. He invents and tortures her with various different ways, not for political necessity, but for his sadistic pleasure. He finds pleasure in torturing her. His confrontation with the Duchess is almost incestuous in this intensity, because he's always unhealthily attracted or obsessed with her, with his sister. And this scene is the height of all that obsession. But notice how quickly guilt creeps in his heart when he says, "Cover her face, mine eyes dazzle, she died young." It shows the cruelty of Ferdinand, and that cruelty also collapses into self reproach. He starts, reproaching himself. Self reproach, that means he starts blaming himself. His cruelty is exposed in this act, and his guilty conscience is also seen with, clearly seen in this act. So that contradiction is very important for us in this act 4, and to understand the character arc of Ferdinand. And Ferdinand is not a simple villain. He is a study in obsession, he is a study in guilt, and he is also a study in the madness which he is going through, the animalistic behavior that is he is showing. He cannot be termed as a very simple villain who is just simply willing to have the Duchess killed and her entire family wiped away. But rather, we can see in him an obsessed, a guilty conscious, a mad person. Now, let us look at the character of Cardinal. The Cardinal is Ferdinand's opposite. He is calm, composed, utterly pragmatic, very cold and calculating person. When Ferdinand rages or he gets angry, the cardinal whispers. He does everything very discreetly. He doesn't rage, he doesn't get angry at all very quickly like Ferdinand, but he makes no mistakes also. His coldness is more terrifying because he calculates, he plans, and then he plots and then executes. He is not ambitious and he is not impulsive like Cardinal. He says, how tedious is a guilty conscience, and then proceeds to plot more crimes. So that means he talks about guilt and guilty conscience, but then he is not affected by it. He even continues to plot further so that the end results of this murder do not, come back haunting him, or he doesn't get punished by anyone or blamed by anyone. So this shows Webster's critique of clerical hypocrisy, religion used as disguise for corruption. Unlike Ferdinand, the cardinal does not descend into visible madness. He's not shown as a very mad person acting very erratically in the entire play or in the fourth act, especially. Rather, he hides behind formality. He hides behind the church authority and misuses his power and position. And he is very rational and very calculating even after the crime is committed. He doesn't go into madness like Ferdinand. So students should note that the cardinal represents institutional evil, that is the evil committed under the guise of being a person from church or an ecclesiastical group, and Ferdinand represents personal obsession. He is different from Cardinal. His is the personal obsession from Duchess, but Cardinal is very cold and calculating, and he has some financial obsession with the Duchess. So together they embody two faces of tyranny: passion, which is for Ferdinand, and coldness, which goes to Cardinal. So both are equally destructive, but in nature. So we cannot say that one is lesser destructive. Both are responsible for this fatal end which the Duchess meets. Now let us discuss some themes also for from this act. This Act 4. One of the most glaring themes in Act 4 is tyranny, particularly patriarchal tyranny. Ferdinand cannot tolerate his sister's autonomy, that she married on her own will and she decided for her own life and she took her freedom in her own hands. He says he acts for honor, but his obsession is personal. Even some sexual undertones are seen in his obsession with the Duchess, as I always tell you, that it is some incest which is there shown in the character of Ferdinand for the Duchess. Now, the Duchess cries, why do you visit me for this? You violate a sacrament of the church. This line exposes how her brother's power overrides law, overrides religion, and overrides even the kinship or the relationship between family members. So, patriarchy here is not protective, but patriarchy here is destructive because it is not protecting the Duchess of her rights, being brothers, being the male members of the society. Rather, they are trying hell bent on destroying her happiness, and her life. For students, the important takeaway here is that Webster dramatizes the violence women face when they resist patriarchal control. When they go against the patriarchy and assert their authority, they face violence at the hands of men. This is important for you to understand. And the similar thing happens with the Duchess. The Duchess's body becomes the battlefield of male anxiety about honor, wealth, and control. Her body is not hers to claim, but rather it becomes a battlefield for these men to fight for honor, to fight for wealth, or to fight for the overall mental, emotional, and physical control of the Duchess. Madness and disorder. This theme is present everywhere in the entire play, and especially in this act. Ferdinand's cruelty tips into madness. He goes crazy at the end of the scene. His obsession with wolves becomes the foreshadowing of lycanthropy. He assumes himself to be a wolf. Now, the madman's mask, which is there in this act, is also symbolic, where madmen they start parading in front of the Duchess. This scene is also symbolic. Each madman parodies a profession. There is a mad lawyer, there is a mad doctor, there is a mad priest. So this is Webster mocking the society itself, that how people under the guise of different professions they enact out their eccentricities, वो अपनी eccentricities को fulfill करते हैं under the guise of different professions. For example, law, medicine, religion. And instead of protecting people, these professions or the people pursuing these professions, they have turned mad, they have turned corrupt, and they have made people powerless. Now, when an officer says he seems to me a very formal Frenchman in talking to himself, it reflects how power without morality, without moral values, it becomes ridiculous. So madness here is not just individual, but it is also a social madness where a society becomes crazy and start exploiting powerless people. A world where institutions they no longer make any sense, but rather they are there to fulfill the personal vendetta of a few people who hold the power, who hold the position, people like Ferdinand and Cardinal. Then we have the theme of identity and integrity. The Duchess's integrity is the shining light of Act 4. The only positive thing in the Act 4 that we see is her integrity. Her words, when she says, I am Duchess of Malfi still, these are declarations that her essence, her being the Duchess, it survives even if her brothers strip her of everything else in the world. Then also she will always be a duchess, and she was always a duchess. Now, Webster suggests that true nobility lies in inner strength, not in the power or the money or the status and in the social class. It lies in your inner strength, in your inner power. That is the true nobility. So, Cariola's contrasting death, where she begs for pleads for her life, begs for her life, and she resists her killing. It makes the duchess's composure even more stand out in the entire scene. That duchess is so noble in her strength that she doesn't fear death, unlike the general people or a woman like Cariola who is obsessed with life and she is afraid. Duchess is somebody who is a saint like figure, who's so powerful, mentally so strong, that she is not afraid of the death. So this is what makes her a tragic heroine. She dies physically defeated, but morally she has won. She has managed to stay sane. Whereas Ferdinand, who is out of the prison, nobody is saying anything to him, but then he goes mad because he has a guilty mind. Whereas Duchess, she has never done anything wrong and she never had a guilty mind. That's why she stood strong till the last breath. Now, what is important here is that this theme it resonates with Renaissance ideas of virtue, identity that cannot be destroyed, but worldly tyranny, which is always going to end. Tyranny is not going to survive for long, but your identity, your virtue, your good deeds, they are going to stay strong. This is the ideal Renaissance ideal that people believed at that time. Conscience and guilt, these are the themes which are constantly there in Act 4, and Act 4 is haunted by conscience. Bosola develops conscience. He regrets serving Ferdinand and he regrets serving Cardinal. In short, he regrets serving the tyranny. Now Ferdinand is tormented by it. His conscience, his guilt. He cannot bear to see the Duchess's face. He says, mine eyes dazzle, she died young. He doesn't want to see her because her dead face reminds Ferdinand of his guilt. And the cardinal, however, he suppresses his conscience completely using religion as a mask. He is somebody who is not at all guilty. He doesn't feel guilty. Even if he is conscious for a while, then he suppresses his conscience and he further plans and plots using religion as a mask. So, this gives us three different models of guilt. One is remorse, which is felt by Bosola. Second is madness, which is felt by Ferdinand. And the third is hypocrisy, which is Cardinal himself, because he's a hypocrite. He doesn't even flinch. Even after Duchess's death, he's somebody who is not affected at all. So Webster's point is clear. Power cannot escape conscience. Guilt will either destroy you, transform you, or it will turn you into a cold manipulator. That is what it happens. That guilt destroys you. That is, Ferdinand is destroyed by it. It transforms you. That is, Bosola is transformed by his guilt. And there is another third thing which happens with the guilt here. That guilt turns you into even a further cold and manipulative person, which is the cardinal. He turns more manipulative, he turns more cold and calculative with his guilt. So, guilt has three different effects on the three different people here. For students, it is important to note how Webster connects psychology to politics. The corruption of power is not just external, but it corrodes the soul, it destroys your soul, it kills it at the end, the corruption. So now let's sum up this entire Act 4. Act 4 is really the tragic climax of the play. As I told you before, Webster combines psychological terror, illusions, wax figures, madmen with physical horror, strangulation, and with death. The Duchess, she emerges as a martyr, a woman who resists tyranny with courage and identity. Ferdinand and the Cardinal, they represent two kinds of corruption: sadistic cruelty and cold pragmatism. Bosola is caught in the middle, but later on he begins to awaken morally. And that haunting line, cover her face, mine eyes dazzle, she died young, it sums it up. It sums everything. It's not just about the Duchess's youth, it's about Ferdinand's guilt finally breaking through. In this act, Webster brings together themes of tyranny, identity, madness, and conscience, as I discussed, in one unforgettable climax. So I hope you have understood the essence of the play from the critical perspective. Now, please read the play for better understanding. Let me know what you understood after your reading of the play. This is Dr. Shweta signing off. See you in the next video on another new literary piece. Till then, keep reading, keep studying, and enjoy studying literature.